I never thought that a simple group text would end up being the moment I lost respect for my own child. Surgery on the 12th. Just need someone to take me home. That's all I wrote. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, responded first. It's none of my business. I read it 3 times. None of my business. Like I was asking a stranger to clean my gutters or watch my dog, not my own family to pick me up after an operation. Adam, my son, my only son, didn't respond at all. Not a thumbs up. Not even one of his lazy okay replies. Just silence. My chest tightened, but not from the gallbladder issue. No, this was worse. Something deeper, something rotten that had been growing for years, and I'd been too afraid, or too proud, to call by name. I sat alone on the edge of my bed, the room dim but still warm from the sun. The text thread stared back at me like a neon sign flashing, "You don't matter." I'd raised Adam on my own for most of his childhood while my husband did night shifts and weekends to keep us afloat. I taught Adam how to ride a bike, helped him get his first car, co-signed the lease for their first home when the bank laughed them out the door. I remembered Jessica's smug little smile when they moved in, how she called the neighborhood quaint with that tight little voice that always meant the opposite. And now, she had the nerve to say it wasn't her business. I didn't cry. I should have, but I didn't. I just sat there, rereading those 5 words until they stopped sounding like English. I thought about the doctor's words. You'll need someone to take you home. The anesthesia wears off slowly. You can't Uber. I thought about the forms they made me sign, emergency contact, post-op care. I thought about how silence can speak louder than cruelty. That's when I knew. This surgery would be the least painful part of my week. Because when your own child doesn't think your life is his business anymore, you realize you've already been cut open. The gallbladder was just the second slice. 3 weeks earlier, when my doctor first scheduled the gallbladder procedure, I didn't panic. It was outpatient. Routine. $3, $200 out of pocket. I'd been squirreling away for it since January. Canceled cable, skipped Christmas gifts, even cut my grocery bill down to rice and frozen vegetables. Because that's what responsible people do, right? They prepare, they don't ask for handouts, they carry their own weight, and that's what made it worse. I never once imagined I'd be doing this alone. I assumed, foolishly, that Adam or Jessica would drive me home, sit with me for an hour, maybe bring soup. Family helps family. That was the rule I lived by, still do, even now. I never told them how bad the pain had gotten. I didn't want to scare anyone. It started as a dull ache in my right side back in November. By February, I couldn't eat without cramping up like a fist. When the doctor finally showed me the scans, I could tell by his tone he was sugarcoating it. "You don't want to wait much longer?" he said. "And we'll need someone to drive you home after." I nodded. "My son will take me." That's what I said. Because I believed it. Because I thought Adam still cared. He hadn't always been this distant. There was a time he'd call just to check on me after storms. When he and Jessica moved into their new place, I stocked their fridge and watched the babies every Saturday so they could sleep in. I even co-signed the lease, not that they ever thanked me, but things changed. Slowly, then all at once, Jessica took over everything, his voice, his time, his priorities. And Adam, he shrank. Now he stood back and let her decide who mattered. And apparently, I didn't. So I kept preparing like someone would be there. Bought a soft ice pack for my stomach, cleaned the guest bathroom, washed the good towels. And when I sent that text, surgery on the 12th, just need someone to take me home, I didn't expect a parade. I just expected decency. Instead, I got silence. And Jessica's casual cruelty. And that's when I realized maybe they were hoping I wouldn't come back at all. Jessica's contempt didn't start with that text. It started small, like most poison does. The first time she wrinkled her nose when I walked in wearing my old loafers, I brushed it off. "You know you can get those in leather, right?" she'd said, laughing into her wine glass like I was part of the joke. Then came the suggestions. "Maybe we shouldn't bring the kids to your house anymore. The air's a little musty." Musty. That's what she called the scent of lemon oil and old books and my late husband's aftershave, still faint on the throw pillow he used to rest his head on Sunday afternoons. Then there were the sighs, the kind that sliced deeper than words. Every time I spoke, she sighed. At dinner, at the birthday parties. On the rare days, they let me ride in their car. I'd ask how work was going. Sigh. I'd tell her I found a coupon for that bedding store she liked. Sigh. I could have said I had weeks to live, and she'd have sighed like I was asking her to unload groceries. And Adam? He never once stepped in. He'd just sit there, picking at his food, pretending he didn't hear. Silence was his shield, his way of not having to choose. I learned to shrink myself around them, to speak less, offer less, expect less. When they'd visit, which became holidays only, if that, I'd light candles in every room and leave windows cracked to air out whatever old smell Jessica always complained about. I'd wash the curtains, vacuum the rugs twice. It didn't matter. She always found something. Oh, did you cook this? Wow, brave of you. That was last Thanksgiving. I'd spent 8 hours on a rosemary turkey just to have her push it around her plate like it was roadkill. But I didn't say a word. I smiled and cleared the dishes while she took her wine to the living room and kicked her feet up on my coffee table. Adam watched, said nothing, and I told myself it wasn't worth making a scene, that I was lucky to have family close by. Now I see it clearly. They were never close, just near enough to take what they wanted and leave me feeling like a guest in my own life. I pulled out the trust paperwork that night, just after the house went quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat at the kitchen table, same spot where I used to help Adam with homework, and flipped through page after page of documents no one else bothered to read. The signatures were there. Mine, Harold's, the notary's. Mr. Lang's business card still paper-clipped to the front. He'd been our estate attorney since 2006. Sharp man, professional, not the kind to play favorites or tell stories out of school. But he listened. He never talked down to me the way Adam sometimes did, and Harold had trusted him. The more I read, the calmer I felt. 30 years running HR and payroll at Dr. Feldman's clinic taught me one thing. Power doesn't belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to whoever controls the paperwork. And I'd controlled a hell of a lot of paperwork in my day. Employment contracts, terminations, raises, audits. I knew how to word a memo that shut down a lawsuit before it started. I knew how to spot forged signatures and fake medical excuses. I'd read more tax forms than Adam and Jessica combined. I'd just gotten used to hiding that part of myself. Letting them believe I was harmless made things easier. But now I needed that version of me back. The one who caught payroll discrepancies with nothing but a red pen and a raised eyebrow. The one who once stood in front of a doctor and told him, "You're not stealing PTO hours from the nurses. Not on my watch." I opened the drawer, pulled out Mr. Lang's card, and dialed. He answered on the third ring, just like always. "Dorothy, it's been a while," he said warmly. "What can I do for you?" I didn't waste time. "I'd like to come in. I need to protect some documents. And I'd like to talk about removing my son from anything involving my estate." There was a pause. Then, professional as ever. "Understood. When would you like to come in?" "I'm having surgery tomorrow," I said. "Give me a few days to recover. Then, I'm ready." "Of course. I'll have everything ready." When I hung up, I sat back and stared at the envelope in front of me. Jessica thought I had nothing but casseroles and old furniture. She was about to find out how wrong she was. 2 days after the surgery, I sat at Mr. Lang's conference table, bandages still under my blouse, painkillers tucked in my purse like a secret. "I hope the procedure went smoothly," he said, voice gentle but brisk. He was the kind of man who never pretended sympathy. He just gave you solutions. That's what I needed. "It went as expected," I said. "The harder part's been what happened before and after." He nodded. "Let's start there." I handed him the folder. The trust documents Harold and I had finalized in 2018, copies of the deed, and a letter I'd written the night before the surgery, naming him official custodian of all trust-related matters moving forward. "Adam's no longer my emergency contact. I've updated my directive," I said quietly. and I want Jessica formally disinherited. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Something changed? I told him everything. The group text, Jessica's reply, Adam's silence, and the way it didn't feel like a mistake, it felt like a message. Mr. Lang didn't ask unnecessary questions. He took notes, nodded slowly, and when I paused, he just said, "We'll take care of it." He photocopied the updated directive and had me sign 3 fresh copies. Then he made a phone call in front of me, low voice, professional tone. Dorothy Parker would like to initiate formal removal of her son Adam Parker from executor authority. I'll be sending you notarized paperwork today. He hung up and looked at me. You understand that this means neither Adam nor Jessica can legally access, request, or redirect any funds related to the trust, the house, or your investments without your notarized approval. I understand, and if anything were to happen, financial abuse, forged documents, pressure of any kind, I want you to call me immediately, no hesitation. I nodded. I already feel like I waited too long. Then we'll move quickly. Before I left, he walked me to the elevator, his tone softening. You know, Dorothy, you're not the first woman to sit in that chair with a broken heart and a well-fed family. I'm sure I'm not, I said. But I'll be one of the last who lets it happen twice. He smiled at that. That's the right energy. As I stepped into the elevator, I felt the pain in my side pulse hard. But underneath that pain was something steadier, sharper. Resolve. They thought they were cutting me out. They didn't know I'd already locked the doors behind them. By the time I got home, I knew exactly what I wanted. Not just peace, not just safety. I wanted independence, the kind you don't have to ask for, apologize for, or explain to anyone. That became the goal, my win. It wasn't about making them pay. Not yet. It was about building a life where they couldn't reach me, couldn't twist the knife again, couldn't touch 1 cent of what Harold and I built. And I'd do it the way I'd done everything else in my life. Quietly, carefully, one piece of paperwork at a time. I made a list that night, a real list. Pen and notebook. I wrote in block letters across the top, no more dependents. I listed every place Adam's name was still attached to mine. Bank alerts, insurance backups, my safe deposit box access card, little strings I hadn't thought about in years. And then I added another column, what I control, the deed to the house, the trust, the savings account with enough in it to last me 2 years, even if something went wrong, and Mr. Lang, the best legal firewall a woman like me could have. I was still healing, still sore from the surgery, but every time I stood up to pour myself tea or change the ice pack, I felt steadier. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I pictured what winning actually looked like. It wasn't dramatic. It was June, knocking on my door with soup. It was reading on my porch without waiting for someone to call. It was never again asking people who see me as a burden to do me a favor. It was keeping my name on my property, my money in my hands, and my boundaries so firm they couldn't even see the line anymore. I didn't want an apology. I didn't even want a confrontation. I wanted freedom. That's what I'd protect. Not out of spite, out of memory, out of love for the woman I used to be before I got too tired and too polite. I closed the notebook and turned off the light. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was reclaiming my life. And they were about to find out the difference. On the morning following the surgery, during the follow-up, I found the first breadcrumb. It was small, nothing explosive, but it settled in my chest like a stone. The hospital receptionist smiled as she pulled up my chart. You're listed under Adam Parker for emergency contact. Is that still correct? I paused. He hadn't called. Not before the surgery. Not after. Not once. Yes, I said, then stopped. No, actually, no it isn't. She turned the screen toward me. Adam's name, his cell number, their shared address, all under primary family contact. I thought back to the discharge nurse 2 days earlier, the way she'd asked, will someone be waiting outside for you? I'd said yes, even though I wasn't sure, even though I was already holding my phone, about to dial the neighbor instead. She'd smiled and handed me the wheelchair, They'd marked "Family Pickup None" on the paperwork. I remembered the way the nurse glanced down when I stood up too fast. She hadn't pushed, just placed a soft hand on my arm and said, "Take your time, honey." Back at the counter, the receptionist tapped a few keys. "Would you like to update your contact now?" "Yes," I said. "Add June Halpern. She lives across the street. She brought me home." She smiled and nodded. "Of course. Good neighbor. Better than a son, apparently." I walked out slower than I used to, my side still tender, my legs not quite steady, but I felt taller. Adam didn't even know he was still listed as the person they'd call if something went wrong. He didn't care. They always say you find out who your people are when things fall apart. But what they don't tell you is how quiet that realization can be. There's no yelling, no grand betrayal, just a hallway, a nurse, a blank space where your family should have been. June had shown up with ginger ale and pillows and a soft blanket for my legs. She'd stayed until I fell asleep, then left a note. "Call me if you need anything. I'm here." Adam never even sent a text. That breadcrumb, that little update on a screen, it told me everything I needed to know. I had become invisible to my own son, but that also meant something else. If I didn't exist to them, they had no idea what I was doing, and now I could move forward without asking permission from anyone. 2 days later, I sat at my kitchen table with a stack of forms, a black pen, and a steady hand. No shaking, no hesitation. First, I pulled out my medical directive and stared at the name printed in black letters. Adam James Parker. I crossed it out. Then I did the same on the power of attorney file I'd signed in 2019, back when I thought, just in case, still meant something. Back when I believed Adam would step up when it mattered. He didn't. So I called my doctor's office, told them I needed to submit new paperwork. They emailed me the form while I was still on the phone. The nurse, Sandy, spoke gently, like she knew. "We see this more than you'd think, Ms. Parker. Let us know if you need help with witnesses." I didn't. June came over with blueberry muffins that afternoon. When I told her what I was doing, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Where do I sign?" That's the thing about real kindness. It doesn't perform. It just shows up. I handed her the clipboard, and she signed as primary contact, emergency designee, and healthcare proxy. "Are you sure?" she asked, eyes scanning the form like it was something sacred. I nodded. "You already brought me home once. You didn't ask for anything in return. That's enough." We didn't hug. We didn't make it dramatic. We just sat there in my sunroom and shared a quiet moment over warm muffins and a glass of iced tea. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Capable. When June left, I scanned the forms and emailed them back to the clinic. I made 3 physical copies and filed one with Mr. Lang. Another went into my safe. Then I pulled up the insurance site and removed Adam from every backup contact field I could find. I was methodical, patient, just like I'd been in payroll, catching mistakes others missed. By the time I was done, not one medical or financial institution had Adam's name on it. He didn't even know what he'd lost. And that's what made it powerful, because this wasn't about drama anymore. It was about dignity. And I was finally taking mine back, one signature at a time. The Facebook post was innocent enough. June had taken a photo, just my front porch, a vase of daisies in the foreground, me sitting in the rocker, blanket over my legs. The caption read, "Home safe and healing." Red heart, grateful for small kindness. She didn't tag me. She didn't say what happened. But Jessica saw it anyway. And 17 minutes later, the family group chat lit up like a warning flare. "Jessica, if you wanted us involved, you should have asked properly. We're not your babysitters." Adam liked her comment. That was it. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Sorry we didn't check in." Not even, "Who's June?" Just a public scolding in front of no one who mattered, as if I was some petulant child who'd embarrassed them at the store. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then turned the phone face down, because I finally understood something. They weren't upset that I'd excluded them. They were upset that I didn't need them. Jessica wasn't used to being cut out. She's always been the one deciding who's welcome, who's tolerated, who gets the crumbs of her approval. And now, she wasn't even in the room. That terrified her. She didn't care that I'd come home sore and stitched, needing help to climb my porch stairs. She cared that someone else had stepped in, that someone had seen me weak and hadn't turned away. And it hadn't been her. This wasn't about family. It was about control. I didn't reply to the message. What was there to say? She'd shown her hand. Adam had too. A woman spends her life building something. A home, a family, a sense of safety, and in one moment, with one like, her own child confirms he's chosen convenience over conscience. And all because I made other arrangements. Arrangements that, quite frankly, worked better. June had cooked. June had listened. June had asked what the doctor said, whether I had follow-up scheduled, whether I needed help getting my meds. Jessica had sent a text like she was disciplining a maid. And Adam? He clicked a button and called that love. I deleted the thread and took a deep breath. Because they'd just done me a favor. They gave me a screenshot. They gave me proof. And soon, they'd give me something else. A reason to cut the cord permanently. I started printing that afternoon. Screenshots, dates, names, all of it. Jessica's text. It's none of my business. I circled it in red Sharpie like a middle school teacher, grading disrespect. Then the group chat from yesterday, the one where she scolded me like a toddler. We're not your babysitters. Adam's cowardly like just beneath it. Then I pulled the hospital discharge forms from my bag, bottom right corner, in neat capital letters, family pickup, none. That nurse had asked, will someone be waiting? And I had smiled and said yes, even though I already knew the answer. But the paperwork didn't lie. I laid them out on the dining room table in neat rows. Screenshots, forms, updates, a paper trail of neglect. Not loud, not violent, but steady, cold, legal. Then I pulled the updated directive, signed and witnessed, showing Adam and Jessica removed from all authority over my health decisions. And in their place, June Halpern, neighbor, emergency contact, healthcare proxy, witness, friend. People forget that silence leaves fingerprints. So does laziness. So does entitlement. They don't just bruise your heart. They sign their names right into your story. Jessica thought she'd made her point by mocking me in the family thread. But what she actually gave me was evidence. People like her don't think receipts matter. They think emotions make you unreliable. But I've spent too many years behind HR desks and payroll logs to believe that. You want the truth? Put it in ink, file it, timestamp it. So that's what I did. Mr. Lang had already started building the case with me. Disinheritance papers for Jessica, executor transfer away from Adam. But I knew this wasn't just about trust fund control anymore. It was about establishing pattern, a clear, undeniable record of disregard, callousness, and calculated distance. Because if they ever tried to come back later, tears in their eyes, hands outstretched, I didn't want to second-guess myself. I wanted to be able to say, you didn't forget me, you abandoned me. And I have the files to prove it. I placed the papers in a new folder, labeled it in bold black ink, receipts do not shred. Then I locked it in the safe, because what they'd mistaken for weakness was actually strategy. And when the trap snapped shut, I'd know exactly how we got there. Mr. Lang called me 3 days later. He never opens with small talk. Dorothy, he said, calm but clipped. You're going to want to come in, now. When I arrived at his office, he didn't even ask how I was healing, just slid a manila folder across the table like it was radioactive. Inside, a refinance application, Adam's name, Jessica's signature, my forged one at the bottom, and stapled behind it. An authorization letter, supposedly written and signed by me, approving a $50,000 advance distribution from the trust. My hands went cold. I didn't say a word, I just kept flipping pages. They hadn't even tried to make it look real. They'd copied my signature from a medical form I signed last year and pasted it on a letter written in some cheap online template. You could still see the watermark faintly behind the words. This was submitted to First Horizon Bank last Friday, Mr. Lang said. Someone from underwriting flagged it and contacted my office directly. Why? I asked, throat dry. Because they recognized your name and knew the trust required my sign-off, which of course they didn't have. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, letting the truth hit in slow, violent waves. They weren't just waiting for me to get old. They weren't just ignoring me. They were planning for me to be irrelevant. They'd already written me out, legally, financially, on paper. They assumed I'd be too weak to catch it, or too scared to fight it, or worse, already dead, and they wanted the money now. I thought back to Jessica's designer bags, Adam's new deck, the half-renovated kitchen I saw on Facebook last month. They'd already spent it. In their minds, it was already theirs. Jessica didn't say, "It's none of my business," because she was annoyed. She said it because she thought I wasn't hers anymore. Is this criminal?" I asked finally. Mr. Lang's jaw tightened. "Yes, fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse. And if they submitted this to any other institution, we'll find out." He placed another document in front of me. "I need your signature here. We're freezing all movement on the trust. Effective immediately." I signed, with my real signature. Because now it wasn't just about disappointment. It was war. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and wept. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears that fell quietly down my cheeks like they'd been waiting for permission. My stitches ached. My head throbbed. But none of it hurt like this. Not a single phone call. Not one flower. Not even a card from the dollar store. Jessica hadn't asked how the surgery went. Adam hadn't even pretended to care. They weren't worried. They were busy forging my name and planning where to put the new pool. And I was sitting in the same house where I'd once nursed Adam through the flu, spoon-fed him chicken broth, stayed up 3 nights in a row just to make sure his fever didn't spike. I'd raised him here, held him when his dog died, helped him move out, and then, when he lost his first job, back in again. I'd watched him promise to always look after Mom at the wedding, voice cracking as he squeezed my hand. That promise didn't even last 5 years. What changed? Was it Jessica? Or was this always in him? The capacity to step over the people who raised him when money was on the table. I opened the freezer and pulled out the container of soup June had dropped off. Beef barley, still half full. She'd even labeled it with the date and wrote, "Add water when reheating red heart," in pen across the lid. That one act of kindness felt like a spotlight on everything my own son hadn't done. I sipped the soup slowly and let the grief work its way through me like medicine with a bitter aftertaste. And as I sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the hydrangeas Harold planted 20 years ago, I thought, this was never about money. It was about being discarded, used, ignored, replaced. Jessica had erased me from their lives with one shrug and a forged signature. And Adam? He'd let her. I picked up my phone, scrolled through old photos, found one from the hospital. Me in the gown, thumb up, puffy-eyed but smiling. I'd taken it, thinking I'd send it to Adam and say, "Still here, still strong." I never sent it, but now I looked at it and whispered to myself, "You're not done, not yet," because grief is real, but so is rage, and I was finally learning how to use both. Mr. Lang's voice was crisp when he called the next morning. "I've scheduled a meeting for Friday." I told them it's about estate planning and early distributions. I didn't even ask if they agreed to come. Of course they did. Jessica probably already had a mental spreadsheet labeled Dorothy's money. She'd show up in heels, thinking this was a victory lap, that I'd finally folded, that the old woman had come to her senses and realized who held the power now. Let her think it. Friday, 11 a.m. Lang & Associates. Polished oak panels, real leather chairs, and the kind of quiet that makes liars nervous. Mr. Lang would do the talking. I would do the watching. That was the trap. We wouldn't accuse them. Not yet. We'd let them tell on themselves. Let Jessica lean in. Let Adam fidget. Let the greed show in the whites of their eyes. "I've drafted a decoy document," Mr. Lang explained. "It outlines a hypothetical disbursement schedule, just enough to make them think they're in control. We won't file it, but we will present it." I almost laughed. The man had been handling estates for 30 years. He knew exactly how to bait a hook. "Will it hold up?" I asked. "Oh, it'll do more than that. It'll tell us what they're really after." I spent the next 2 days gathering my calm. The bruises from surgery had faded, but the scar was still tender, So was the one they couldn't see. But I wasn't showing up wounded. I wore slacks and the good cardigan Harold bought me the year before he died. The one Jessica once called churchy. I wore it anyway. June offered to drive me, but I said no. I wanted to walk in under my own steam. I arrived early. Mr. Lang met me at the door and nodded once. "You ready?" "Yes," I said. "Let's see who they really are when they think I've surrendered." At 10:57, I heard them in the hallway. Jessica's laugh, bright and fake. Adam's silence, as always. She walked in first. Heels, sunglasses, that stiff little smile she saved for when she thought she was being watched. I didn't stand to greet them. Didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Because today wasn't about civility. It was about proof. And I already had more than enough of it. We sat across from each other at the long conference table. Me on one side, Jessica and Adam on the other. Jessica's purse hit the polished wood with a soft thump, like she owned the room. She crossed her legs, smoothed her skirt, and gave me a tight, practiced smile. Adam avoided my eyes. Typical. Mr. Lang cleared his throat and laid a folder on the table. No theatrics, just business. "Thank you both for coming," he said. "Dorothy has asked me to begin reviewing her estate documents, particularly those relating to potential early distributions of her investment trust." Jessica leaned forward immediately, eyes lighting up like it was Christmas morning. "Oh, that's great. I'm glad we're finally having this conversation. We've been wondering, what the plan is long term." Plan, as if I hadn't spent 30 years making the plan she was now circling like a vulture. Adam still hadn't said a word. He stared at the wood grain in the table like it might open up and swallow him whole. Mr. Lang slid a mock disbursement schedule toward them, a carefully worded decoy, just enough to get them talking. Jessica skimmed it, nodding like a woman reviewing a brunch menu. "So this section here, the one about potential partial access for property upgrades, is that something we can proceed with this year?" No hesitation, no shame. She thought she was negotiating. She thought we were all on the same page. I looked at Adam. He finally met my eyes. And I saw it, that flicker of guilt, the kind that doesn't come from remorse, only from getting caught. "Before we go any further," Mr. Lang said, his voice now sharpening like a knife being drawn, calm, cool, and suddenly dangerous. "We need to address a few irregularities." Jessica blinked. "Irregularities?" "Yes," he said, opening a second folder. "Specifically, this forged authorization letter requesting $50,000 from Dorothy's trust, submitted last month, with her signature, which she did not write." Jessica froze. Adam shifted in his seat. I watched them both, because this was the moment their confidence started to crack. Mr. Lang continued, "We're also aware of a refinance application tied to your property, filed with Dorothy's name and trust listed as collateral, again without her consent." Jessica's smile vanished. Adam let out a single word, barely above a whisper, "Mom," but I didn't answer. Not yet, because this wasn't his moment. This was mine. I opened my bag slowly, no rush, no tremble, and I laid the first paper on the table, face up, centered, a screenshot of the group text. Jessica's message. "It's none of my business." I'd circled it in red. Jessica's jaw tightened. "What does that have to do with—" I laid down the second, the family chat. "We're not your babysitters," with Adam's thumbs up still visible. She glanced at him. He didn't look back. The third, hospital discharge form. Family pickup none. "Wasn't available that day," Jessica muttered. Reaching for her phone like this was just a scheduling issue, not a dissection of her character. The fourth, updated medical directive. Adam, removed. Jessica, not listed. Witness, June Halpern. I said nothing, because the evidence did all the talking. "You abandoned her," Mr. Lang said quietly, matter of fact, "when she needed a ride from surgery, when she needed support, when you knew she had no one else listed. You offered nothing but disdain. And then, in the following days, you attempted to access funds using her forged signature." Jessica sat back hard in her chair. I thought, what exactly did you think?" I asked. Finally, my voice wasn't angry. It was clean, like a wound finally dressed. That I was too foggy from anesthesia to notice? That I'd forget who showed up and who didn't? That you could treat me like furniture and still collect what was in the drawers? Jessica's eyes narrowed. This is being blown way out of proportion. No, I said. It's being documented. That's the difference. I reached for the final sheet, a copy of the notarized fraud notification filed through Mr. Lang's office. I didn't hand it to them. I just looked at my son. I could have died on that table. You didn't check. You didn't care. And now I find out you forged my name while I was still stitched up and bleeding? Adam's face collapsed into itself. Mom, we were just trying to get ahead of me dying? I said, my voice flat. Don't bother with excuses. You made your choice. Jessica stood up. Too fast. We've done so much for you. No, I said, standing too. Calm, steady. You've done nothing with me. Everything has been at me, and now you get nothing. Mr. Lang folded his hands, and the room was silent. Not from fear, from finality. Mr. Lang didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He simply turned to Jessica and said, What you've done constitutes fraud, Mrs. Parker, and as of this moment, you are formally disinherited from Dorothy's estate. Permanently. Jessica froze, as if she hadn't heard him right. What? Excuse me. You will not receive trust distributions, property shares, or executor rights. Dorothy is within full legal authority to make this change. And she has. She opened her mouth, closed it. A flush rose up her neck. Not shame, but rage. And Adam? Mr. Lang continued, voice cool. As of today, he is no longer listed as executor, nor does he hold financial power of attorney, medical authority, or estate oversight. Adam blinked like someone had slapped him. Wait, that's not. He looked at me, stunned. You're cutting me out? I stared at my son. The boy I once carried through the front door of this house, asleep in my arms after a birthday party. You cut yourself out the moment you stopped calling me Mom and started calling me a burden. I never said that, he whispered. No, I said. You just acted like it. Jessica slammed her hands on the table. This is ridiculous. I've put up with her long enough. All the passive aggression, the guilt trips, the fake helplessness. Do you think anyone would put up with this if it weren't for the money? Mr. Lang turned toward her slowly. That's the first honest thing you've said all morning. She blinked. He continued, calm as a blade. Because now it's on record. You've admitted your relationship with Dorothy was transactional, and that supports her decision, legally and morally. Jessica looked to Adam, waiting for him to step in, but he just shrank. No one's saying you don't deserve something, Adam mumbled, almost to himself. We just thought you weren't using it. You don't need all of it. I stared at him, heart thudding, not in pain, in disbelief. You thought my life was worth less because I live it quietly? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't, and now? He didn't get to. I stood up. I don't want your apology. I don't need your approval. I needed your love. And when that disappeared, so did your place in my life. Jessica stood, livid. Adam sat, silent. And I walked out of that room free. I didn't even make it to the elevator before I heard her voice behind me. Jessica. Loud, clipped, sharp. This is insanity. She's lost her mind. You're just going to let her throw everything away because she's emotional? I turned. Slowly. Mr. Lang stood between us, calm as ever. His assistant had stepped into the hallway, clearly alerted by the volume. Doors down the corridor had cracked open. Good. Let them hear. Jessica's heels clicked across the marble. Her face was flushed, hair starting to fall out of the perfect twist she always wore to feel superior. I've tolerated her for years, she hissed. Her little comments, her cluttered house, her pitiful excuses to get attention. Do you know what it's like catering to someone who can't even work a thermostat? I let her speak, let her dig. Every word was a shovel. I kept my mouth shut when she inserted herself into our marriage, our parenting. I never said a word when she rearranged the dishes or made those backhanded remarks about my job. And now I'm being punished because I didn't drive her home from a surgery no one even told me about? You got the text, I said. You replied. Her eyes darted to Adam, but he said nothing. because now the weight had shifted. For years, they had controlled the temperature of every room I walked into. Now, I held the thermostat. Jessica scoffed. Fine, cut us out. Be the martyr. But don't come crawling back when you're old and sick and nobody wants to deal with your bitterness. Mr. Lang stepped forward. That's enough, Mrs. Parker. No, I said. Let her finish. Let her say every last thing she's been holding back so she can't pretend later it was a misunderstanding. Jessica clenched her jaw. We only wanted what was ours. There it was. The truth, like a bullet wrapped in a bow. Mr. Lang's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. Nothing is yours. You abandoned her. You manipulated her. You forged her name. And you did it with the assumption that she'd be too weak to stop you. He turned to me. Anything else, Dorothy? I looked at them. 2 people I used to believe were mine. 2 people who now look like strangers in expensive clothes. No, I said. Not a thing. And I stepped into the elevator. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just let the doors close. And for once, they stayed shut. The bank called the next morning. First Horizon. The same one Adam and Jessica tried to scam. Miss Parker, we've officially voided the refinance application, the woman said. We've also flagged your trust as compromised. No further action will be taken on any file unless verified through your attorney. I thanked her. She sounded nervous, like she knew more would come. 2 hours later, Mr. Lang called. I've submitted the fraud packet to the State Financial Crimes Division. It's now a matter of public record. The forged documents, the signatures, the attempted withdrawal, all of it. I said nothing for a moment, just closed my eyes and breathed. He continued, they may be contacted for questioning. It's not your burden now, it's the state's. I didn't smile. Not exactly. But something loosened in my chest. That afternoon, I sat at my desk and opened Facebook. Jessica had quietly deactivated her account. Adam's page was still up, but their remodel plans were gone. The renderings of the backyard deck, the granite countertops, the caption that had once read, Summer 2025, Big Changes Coming, was deleted. I imagined the phone call they must have gotten from the bank. I imagined the silence that followed. And I imagined Jessica's face when she realized that their credit score, the one she guarded like a firstborn, had taken a hit that couldn't be scrubbed with charm. That's the thing about legal consequences. They don't yell, they don't threaten, they just file. Mr. Lang emailed a summary of actions taken. Refinance voided. Bank flagged their account as high risk. Trust frozen, now resecured under new protections. Legal standing, Jessica barred from any future inheritance action. Executor status, transferred to third-party fiduciary. It was done, not revenge. Results. The remodel they thought they'd already spent, gone. The credit line they planned to use for the vacation, canceled. The trust money they tried to steal, locked. Forever. I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to prove I was worth more than the check they hoped to cash. All I had to do was tell the truth and make sure someone listened. They thought I'd go quietly, but silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it's just the sound of a door locking behind you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far it travels. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos.